the Plain English campaign returns home to Liverpool. But when Chrissy Marr, its founder, first entered the grand portals of this 18th century building over 30 years ago, she was carrying a sack of dead rats in protest over the appalling living conditions of her community in Tuebrook.
We'd walked all the way from Tuebrook to the town hall. That's quite a walk, that was, and with 2 or 3 dead rats in a sack on our back all the way to protest about this great big 17-foot tip that was in Lister Drive. Total contrast to this morning with his red carpets and everywhere is polished and the Lord Mayor is he's at the doorstep. It's quite terrifying, really. I'm more scared this morning than what I was then. We weren't allowed in. We were only allowed into the foyer, and then there was only one person who was the treasurer. He was, you know, the big wig, so to speak, who was allowed to go in to see the Lord Mayor. We had to wait in a little tiny room, like a little reception room. We were never allowed inside the town hall. Make them all jealous, I don't know, but I'm enjoying it.
But today, Chrissy is the star guest at an exhibition in the town hall to celebrate the work of the campaign that has been her lifetime's mission.
Hello sir, how are you? Nice to see you. You okay?
Fantastic, yeah.
Hi, Debbie, I'm John Brown. No problem at all. Tell us all about it. It's wonderful work you're doing.
I don't know whether it's a celebration of where we've come. It's more a celebration for me that somebody that was born in the gutter, raised their head above the parapet and was able to shout, I won't put up with this. I'm not putting up with this. I want something better. That's the celebration. And if that can actually inspire other illiterate like I was, grassroots people, just to stand up and say, I'm not putting up with this. I might be poor, I might be ill-educated, I might be all those things, but I'm not putting up with it and I have rights, then we'll have achieved everything that I'd ever set out to do. The barriers are still there, the verbiage is still there, the isolation is still there, the confusion is still there. It hasn't gone away. They've just dressed it in another dress, that's all. So it becomes bigger and a harder fight to fight now. Before we used to be able to go around to our local council, before we used to come down to the town hall, we'd have to go over to Brussels now. And if we were lucky, most probably go further than that before we're finished. So now it's not as easy to protest today, it's a lot harder, simply because the gobbledygook now comes in many, many different disguises.
Oh, I wish my mother was alive.
Do you?
Yeah, because she was a pensioner. She could never ever find a way around these blinking forms. You know, you keep on hearing the government say now that so much money is available and the pensioners don't claim it. Well,
but they can't.
No, because they can't navigate their way around these blinking forms. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still, there's a lot of improvement that they can do. And especially now with the way inflation and the bills that are hitting pensioners harder than it's hitting anybody else. They must please make the forms more
crystal clear,
understandable, comprehensible, because otherwise we're going to have more and more vulnerable and elderly people. They really cannot navigate their way around these.
You spoke well.
Oh, God bless you, more power to you. We need people like yourself.
Oh. It's awful though, isn't it? I mean, I was talking to a lady yesterday and she was being evicted because she's behind with the mortgage through no fault of her own. Her husband had been made redundant. You know, and she said, if only I knew what I'd signed. Indeed. But I didn't understand.
Indeed.
I just signed it because I wanted the mortgage, but I didn't understand.
If we'd had plain English, for all we know, we might even have been able to avoid the blooming subprime caper. Who knows?
Couldn't agree with you more.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, can I wish you all a very warm welcome to the magnificent setting of Liverpool Town Hall. Can I also say it's a great pleasure to welcome back Chrissy Marr, Chrissy and the Plain English campaign to their spiritual home, the roots of which began quite inauspiciously with the Tuebrook bugle. And I said, you try saying that, Tuebrook bugle. Plain English, that's... I'm also thankful for Chrissy that she hasn't brought a bag of rats with her, which she did the last time she visited the town hall and deposited them on the steps of the town hall to make a point about the area that she was so passionately advocating. Chrissy said, and I quote, that language is an important part of any celebration of culture. And so I think it's appropriate for the Plain English campaign to return to our great city in this very special year for us.
It's affecting everyone's lives. Everyone who, I mean, in my life it's affected, but more so in kids growing up, because, you know, any job you want, any kind of communication that you have to do in everyday life, talking to people and getting your point across clearly. You go for a job interview, even not speaking, even communication in sign language, you know, shows that, okay, it's a plain English, but communication generally, which plain English is a big part, is the most important thing in life. That's what makes the world tick. People getting on with each other. Look at politics. You know, everybody has to understand each other, everyone has to get on with each other, and communication is the biggest part of that.
You do feel inferior if language is used that you don't understand. And ultimately, there is a much simpler way of communication, which will mean the exact same thing. And I think that is what really we have to do. So as much as this Plain English campaign is about, I suppose, helping youngsters who may not be able to understand certain things, I think this should be adopted by people at the top, filtering down, rather than the other way around. Because from a point of view of, as I said, I've been over to Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, and so many problems, and so many everyday problems in life are caused because of a lack of communication, which is what plain English to me is about.
After almost 40 years of campaigning and fighting for the rights of the vulnerable and disempowered, Chrissy still believes this fight is as relevant as ever.
Well, there's life in this body. I'll fight jargon and gobbledygook simply because I've seen how it treats people. I've seen people evicted. I'm seeing people evicted now because of the credit crunch, because they've signed pieces of paper, they haven't either bothered to read it and they couldn't understand it. And when you question them, you say, why didn't you read it? They say, well, what's the point? We've never been able to understand it anyway. Look at the people who can't get the pills for when they're dying of cancer and all the rest of it. There's all kinds of legislation, there's all kinds of jargon. It's there in your face every single day. No, while there's air in my lungs, I'll go on fighting. And yes, I do think we'll win.